Iron within, iron without. Wait a minute. Wrong Space Marine chapter. Oh, I meant for it to be the Iron Hands and not the Iron Warriors. Sorry. Welcome on in. This is Sprues and Studs, and today we are still going to be traipsing around the Warhammer 40K universe. Which homeworld are we going to specifically look at? We are going to be landing in Medusa, which is the homeworld of the Iron Hands. And what specifically are we going to be reviewing today? We are going to be taking an in-depth dive into the Iron Hands Intercessors line that was released by JoyToy a couple weeks ago. So there's nothing to do but get down to the review.
Unleashing the first son of Medusa. Let's see what we have inside. And revealing for a clearer look. All right, ahead of us we have the first offerings from the Sons of Manus over here. And obviously the first thing that we will do is take a look at the action figure itself. And also, in typical fashion, we will do a top-down view of this action figure. So starting off with the helmet, I am looking at the lenses directly right now. And the thing that stands out to me is I actually thought that JoyToy was going to move on to the metallic look on the lenses, as we previously saw on the Dark Angels Intercessors. But it looks like they went back to the regular flat red on the Iron Hands ones, which is a little bit of a disappointment to me, but not that much of a big deal. So you see the silver outlines for the earpieces as well as the hoses. And moving on with the pauldrons, they're completely black, except with an insignia here that denotes probably their company. And flipping this around, we get to see the Iron Hands company symbol on the left-hand pauldron. And while we are on the left-hand side, let's take a quick look at the variations on this Intercessor. Get to see this very large prominent red light over here. And then, obviously, as this guy is in Iron Hands Intercessor, you get to see a metallic gunmetal hand that completely mimics the color of a bolt rifle, which is actually pretty cool. And you can also see a lot of weathering on this hand with this light silver dry brushing that goes all over the place. This one in particular is bionic and very skeletal, reminds me of the T-1000. And then in the center of this action figure, you get the characteristic skull with the wings on the outside. You get to see some dark shading in the deep recesses of the feathers of the wings. Aside from that, there's nothing much else to see, so we're going to have to raise the hands of this Intercessor and see what's going on with the accessory pouches. So you have two accessory pouches on the right-hand side, a very interesting purity seal that dangles right next to the pouches. I like the cog/gear shape that you see over there, very indicative of Iron Hands. Then flipping this around, you get to see an empty holster. And finally, three accessory pouches that are all the same color, brown obviously, which is different from what we saw on the Dark Angels one where this side was black. And finally, rounding this off, you get to see some more insignias on the kneecaps of this action figure. So putting this guy down, we'll take a look at the chainsword, and the chainsword is something that we've all seen before in previous JoyToy action figures. There's really nothing different aside from the color of the chainsword. So the casing of it is clearly this grim dark white, is what I'm going to call it from here on out. And then you get to see silver with the teeth on the chainsword as well as the guard and this area over here. Now, this bolt rifle, I'm not exactly too sure what this bolt rifle is called because of this magazine down here. I think it may be a Hellstorm bolt rifle. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But if I'm correct on this one, shouldn't it be only the heavy intercessors that get to wield this one? I'm not too sure. Like I said, please correct me in the comment section. So this bolt rifle is a grim dark white. So you get to see a lot of weathering that's going on. And then you have a lot of also weathering with this silver area. The scope of the bolt rifle, you can see that there's a red area right here, and there's no lens at the other end of this scope. Bolt pistol pretty much follows the same whole entire aesthetic. White casing, dark gunmetal accents with light silver weathering. Backpack is pretty much the same that we've seen before. Nothing different here, except that there is a lot of weathering and shading, which is a really nice thing to see. That was actually not present on the Dark Angels one. A holstered bolt pistol with a purity seal hanging out the side. And then we're going to be taking a look at this face right here. Half of it is completely bare, half of it is bionic. So you can see this bionic eye that is painted a very dark maroon red, a silver plate that covers half of the skull region, with a blue wire that's sticking out and a wire that powers the bionic eye. And finally, the eye itself is a very dark, beady black that's staring off into you. So now let's take a look at Iron Hands Intercessor number 2.
Time for the second one. Unveiling. Time for the full Monty.
Alright, as Iron Hands Intercessor number 2 looks fairly similar to Intercessor number 1, we're just going to highlight the differences of this guy. So the first difference I'm going to point out is that the helmet has a very, very prominent silver skull that's on the center of it. But aside from that, the rest of it's the same. The pauldrons are completely the same as well, with no variations. But you do see this gigantic heraldic shield here that has another very prominent large iron hand symbol right in the middle of it. And this bionic right arm is the exact same as the arm of the first Intercessor that we looked at. However, on this guy, we actually do have a second bionic arm. And the second bionic arm is once again a dark gunmetal in color. And you can see that with regards to the movement of this thing, it is not double jointed like what we have seen in the past with a Intercessor. It's only a single joint that's right here. Okay, accessory wise, same 2 pouches on the side. Then you have a very interesting medallion or pendant that's dangling right here. It almost reminds me of a compass a little bit. So that's kind of cool to see. Empty holster, 3 pouches, and the rest is pretty much the same. So more similarities, completely the same chainsword and bolt pistol. The bolt rifle, however, is slightly different. Obviously, right now, you get to see a strap right here that goes around the Space Marine shoulders. You get to see these grenades. It finally ends up with a aux grenade launcher up here. You got this grim, dark, worn in white color. That's pretty much it. Let's take a look at the bare head here, or semi-bare head. So this one, you get to see a plate that covers up half of the head, which is a very, very dark gray color, if not nearly metal type black color. You get to see a bunch of hoses running up to the mouthpiece right here, and obviously wire that connects this bionic eye, which is red. And then you have a really nicely screened eye. Finally, we have the bionic skeletal hands that you can swap out. They are completely opposite of what is currently on the action figure itself right now. So it's nice that you can have some variation. And once again, we have come up with the end of the review. So let me wrap this one up.
Ah, yes. The first offering from the Sons of Ferrus Manus. So, what do I think about these guys? Well, I'll have to say that they are completely unique looking compared to the other Intercessors that we've reviewed, especially the Blood Angels as well as the Ultramarines. These guys have a lot of different detail that's going on with them. First of all, bare heads. Love them. This is where the character is at, as you've heard me say 1,000 times before, and I'll say it again. I love bare-headed Space Marines, and there's so much detail going on with the heads that I love, especially with the half cranium that is covered in metal, their bionic eyes. It really flows with the mold of the Iron Hands. And speaking of Iron Hands, the skeletal bionic attachments are once again unique to this chapter that I really like, where most of them actually have this bionic hand, and it's really cool looking that it is, skeletal. One thing I'll have to say about these hands, unfortunately, when I was posing all these things for the B-reel, is that they kept falling off. It was so annoying because I had to put the weapon in the hand, and then every single time I would do it, it would just pop off constantly. I don't think I've actually experienced that many issues with those hands staying on with the other Intercessor action figures. So keep in mind when you're doing that. But unfortunately, where the skeletal bionic hands stop is literally where the differences stop. I mean, the rest of it pretty much is the same. So I, again, Would I recommend this set to your average aficionado? No, I don't. Obviously, these action figures are catered toward 1, Iron Hands fans, and 2, completionists such as myself. So this is your Chapter Master Sprues and Studs, and thank you for tuning into these videos. Your support is awesome, and make sure you smash that subscribe button if these in-depth reviews are your thing. And with that being said, I will see you all in the next destination as well as the next one.